Hey, in this video I'm going to talk about the idea of chaos, and I think I'll just kind of talk generally about it. I don't have a too specific of like a thing to say about chaos, but it it's kind of like the way I see it, chaos is kind of like a fundamental like aspect of nature and just like the world around us. And I think the easiest way to kind of introduce it is as or I guess connect it to like existing structures, is to consider the four classical elements. I think that's what the name for them is. But it's the like earth, water, air, and fire. Where fire would obviously be the element of chaos. And I think obviously different systems give different like attributes to each element. But I think it's pretty. Um, I think it's kind of like the if you're talking about fire, it's kind of like the heat and chaos and like movement of things. And the way it differs from the other elements is that um, how much I don't want to go like too deep into the element stuff, but kind of the idea that the like air, like the element of air moves a lot, and is like kind of like the element of motion, whereas the element of earth is like the element of like stability and kind of like material like stableness, and water is like the opposite of fire, where water is like stability and movement, and like the kind of cohesion and the in terms of chaos, it's like the water is like the order and fire is the chaos, which I think is not necessarily the like a statement that's always true when you're talking about chaos. Because I was trying to think of if like if chaos and order are like truly opposites. And I think when you're talking in terms of the elements and in terms of like parts of nature, I think it is correct to say that like chaos is like the random motion of things, and like the tendency of the world to always be changing and always be unpredictable. Whereas order is like the parts of nature that are predictable and like tend to act the same way over time, and can be like counted and put into mathematical systems and things like that. Whereas chaos is just like you can observe it and you can tell that it's there, but it's never going to fit into a system of like of like rules and mathematical relations. But I think there's a lot of different ways to talk about chaos, and I think in some cases it's not actually the opposite of order, and it's kind of like there's like chaos, order, and then like a third thing that is just kind of doesn't fit into the two descriptions that you would give for each one. Which I feel like I don't know. I can't think of like a way to make that too concrete sounding, but I think just like in this type of general overview, I don't want to say that it's make it like too absolute of like chaos is this thing, because yeah, I guess it's kind of in the spirit of chaos to not have a super clear definition of it. but, but yeah, I think I'll move on to talking about Buddhism and its relation to chaos, because one of the three characteristics they call it in Buddhism is the idea that everything is impermanent. And I think impermanence is, I think it's more or less um, I'm trying to think. I think it is. I think it's pretty fair to say like impermanence is pointing out that chaos is present in everything. Oh, watching a squirrel jumping between the trees. Um, because yeah, the way you would use impermanence in Buddhism is kind of as like a meditative observation, where when you're doing the Vipassana practice, and you essentially, take in a bunch of experience, and like with everything you experience, you identify the way in which it changes, and the way that in which it is only ever the same, or is never actually the same from moment to moment, and it's always changing and always like transforming into something else. And I think that process is kind of like moving out of the perception of order and into the perception of chaos. Because I think almost like the reason to talk about chaos is because it's something that we don't, it's something we don't incorporate into our worldview, or it's like something we can't incorporate into our worldview in in the sense of having like a highly logical, like set in stone description of things. Because chaos is never going to fit into like a system that's highly ordered. Because putting chaos in the middle of a system like that completely it just like destroys the system from the point where you add the chaos, essentially. Because once you have chaos as a part of your way of thinking, you kind of can't, like, you can't use it as a building block to build an orderly system on top of it. But that's kind of like the perspective of wanting to build a system of the world. But one of the things in meditation, and specifically the Vipassana meditation, is specifically like deconstructing the world you have, and like taking apart kind of getting into like the reason you do it, is taking apart the structure of the world that you have that you don't want anymore and want to kind of like destroy and then rebuild from the bottom up. And so kind of just like observing the places that you expect to find order, and like whatever it is, like the sensations of things, or the way you think about a certain topic. It's like finding the places where there is order, and then like flipping that and seeing that thing that seems very orderly also has this component of chaos to it. And it's like the deeper and deeper you go into that type of meditation of like meditating on impermanence, the kind of the more chaotic you see the world to be. And I guess this gets into kind of like the next thing to talk about with chaos is that it is, as like a part of nature, is not inherently good or bad. Because in a lot of ways, chaos and fire, thinking of it in terms of fire, like fire is very clearly a dangerous thing. And I mean, there's so many examples of fire destroying everything, destroying like a house or like a forest, or just being a dangerous element. But at the same time, fire gives us warmth and gives us like the ability to like transform things, like transform metals, create electricity, things like that. And it's really just the way that you use it that determines the kind of like the manifested qualities that something like that has. So if you're using chaos as like a responsible part of like a fully integrated meditation practice, where you have like a grounded way of seeing things, either from like a meditation tradition or just from having your own like well-ordered way of seeing things, and using the chaos as like a small component of it to like dislodge any like stuck energies and like stuck thought patterns. Whereas if you use it irresponsibly, which I think a lot of people do, myself included, in kind of like their meditation journey, if you use it irresponsibly and kind of put too much chaos into the system, it runs the risk of just like kind of destroying structures that aren't ready to be destroyed yet. If you think of like if you're, I think a good example is like if there's like a city that is really old and has to be kind of remodeled, and like new buildings, new industries have to be put in. You can't just like destroy the entire city all at once and then place like a new city on top of it, because like the only reason a city exists in the place it's in is because it's formed itself into like a self-sustaining structure, which has a bunch of different components, where you can take out one component and replace it with something new, and the kind of like the organism of the city will adapt to it and like bring that new component into the existing structure. And so even if, like over the course of 10 years or whatever, the city gets completely replaced and like all the buildings are like none of the buildings there are ones that used to be there, and they've all been like torn down and replaced. The process in which it happens has to be like slow and gradual, where even if the buildings are new, it's like the people living in the city and like the kind of just like the energetic cycles of like like the culture and the way that people have learned to like integrate into the world, like the natural world that the city resides within. Like those things have to be preserved, and they do get preserved if you like add the chaos slowly and slowly replace things and slowly tear things down and rebuild them. But one of the attributes of chaos is that like a fire, like just any sort of, I don't know, like new thing being introduced into a system, it has the ability to completely overtake things and just like consume as much as you put into it. So yeah, kind of just like almost as a summary and like a a description of like how chaos like incorporates into our lives is that like as like the fragile bodies, the fragile minds that we have to like allow chaos to be a part of our lives and allow it to like remodel ourselves, like allow it to kind of like tear us down and build us up over time. Obviously it would be the chaos tearing us down and the order building us back up. We kind of allow that to happen over time, and when it's happening too quickly, we need to find like an order to like kind of keep us safe from like the storm that's happening around us. But in the times when we're ready for like big changes to happen, for like the city to be remodeled, then you just kind of like lean further into the chaos, and only to the extent that you can, safely incorporate it into your system. But it's like the more chaos you let in, the more change that happens, and the more you're able to like have like direct that change in a positive, upwards direction. You can you can use essentially it's like an innate part of nature that you can use as like an infinite source of newness, of novelty, and yeah, it's a powerful but dangerous tool. But but yeah, it's all around us all the time. We just have to learn how to coexist with it in the right way, Yeah, that's about it for the video. I think I don't have too much to say for a video journal type stuff, but yeah, I guess if you enjoyed, like, comment, subscribe, and yeah, peace.